Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Hit the Pacecar, a Great American Race Week. And of course, I'm joined by Cory and Tyler as I am every week here on Hit the Pacecar live on X, or you may be watching afterwards on YouTube or listening on Spotify. So it's time for the Great American Race, but I got to introduce my co-host. I'll start with Tyler. Tyler, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. Y'all lost, man. I don't know what happened. Can't hear you. I think you're. I think you're. I think you might have changed to a different mic or something by mistake. Might be something like that. Cory, I'll get your thoughts too first. What did you think about the Super Bowl?
It was kind of disappointing, but Tyler finally got to feel pain, pain, football pain, you
Man,
know.
still got a trophy though. He's
Nothing. Yeah, hey, it's fine. It's fine. We got a conference championship trophy too. That's about it. That's all we got, you know. But yeah, the Super Bowl was kind of boring, but the Daytona 500 will hopefully not be.
Tyler. You want to try again? I think something. What I think is on you went or your Discord. It probably automatically switched your mic over to something else. That's what I'm thinking. Like you're like I don't know what it did. Because, yeah, I can't hear you at all. You're not even lighting up on Discord. But, yeah, I
Damn it.
wasn't. Oh, yeah, there he is. There he is.
All right, all right. I was horribly disappointed, and all that happened was my baby T-Rex out there could not get his feet. It was bad scene, but it's okay. He's a rookie. Mike Vrabel's gonna fix him. Everything's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be all right. We'll be back.
I,
Six
I,
trophies later, we'll be fine. I ain't worried about it. Not even a little bit.
I
What
think
I am sad for, the biggest loss of the weekend for sure for me, Brad Arnold, R.I.P. Three doors down. That guy. NASCAR. So that's my loss this weekend.
yeah, I don't know. When it came to the game, I wasn't. The game was pretty bad. Obviously, I wasn't able to pay attention to a lot of the game, but I wasn't very entertained with the game. The halftime show was okay. It wasn't bad. It was very creative. I overall enjoyed it, I would say. But Will Campbell, I heard that he actually tore some ligaments in his knee. That's what I was reading earlier. He actually had the MRI and everything. That he tore some
Yep.
ligaments in his knee before the playoffs had started.
Yep. Yep. He was out for 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, he'd just come back. Like, homeboy is a rookie. He's struggling, was injured. It was every bad news you could hope for, and he got crushed, and there was no time. So he'll be back. He'll be all right. He'll be all right. Dust it off.
Yeah, Will Campbell has a bright future. I think a lot of people are giving him a lot of crap, even though he's had an overall a really good rookie campaign. But if you don't win the big trophy, that's what's gonna happen. Like look at Josh Allen. Everybody's bagging on Josh Allen right now. Everybody's bagging on Josh Allen. He might be the best player in the league, and everybody's bagging on him. All right,
Even Sam Darnold anymore.
Sam Darnold, Sammy D's nuts, hot. All right. Let's get to some of the topics for today. Let's get to some NASCAR chatter now that football season's all over and done with. Get to some football and some NASCAR chatter. Topic number one here for today will actually be something that we've talked about at length, I think, on this channel last year, at the end of last year, at the beginning of this year, is Cory Heim and Nick Sanchez have not had rides. Well, they finally have rides for the 2026 season, kind of. Very interesting situation, I would say, for both of them. Cory Heim has been announced for a part-time schedule with 2311 Racing. He's scheduled to race 12 races, so that would be one-third of the season in the number 67 for 2311 Racing, and that in his first attempt will actually be this week at Daytona for the Daytona 500. We'll have to see if he can qualify in. He's one of those drivers that has to qualify his way in. And then, of course, Nick Sanchez was let go from Big Machine Racing very surprisingly, like a month ago, a month and a half. Like it was super late in the silly season. Like most people already had their their rides set up for the 2026 season, and Nick Sanchez got let go from his ride at Big Machine Racing, so he was really trying his best to get something going. And we talked about, well, we didn't really talk about it, but it was part of the other news segment last week that Stigma was trying to buy AM Racing, and it looked like they were lined up to buy AM Racing, and they were going to run their own O'Reilly Series team this year, and AM Racing was just going to be out of the sport, essentially. Well, that fell through, and they're still working to transfer powers over to Stigma at one point. But because of that, I think it opened up the door for Nick Sanchez to get a full-time ride in the number 25 for AM Racing, which was Harrison Burton's ride last year. So kind of like a butterfly effect sort of moment. If Stigma fully buys AM Racing, who knows? Nick Sanchez might not have a ride this year, period. But now he's racing full-time in the number 25 for AM Racing in a Ford. And I want to get the boys' thoughts on this. I think I know how I feel about this, but I'll send it to Tyler first. Tyler, how do you feel about these two moves from 2311 and from AM Racing signing these two guys? Well, Heim was already under contract, but to have official word out there.
I mean, it's kind of crazy. Like, it took them forever. 4 days away from Daytona. Like, this is insane how late they decided to do all this. That's my biggest thing on all that.
Yeah, that's how I agree. Especially, that's how I feel, especially when it comes to Nick Sanchez, because Nick Sanchez was just very late. I felt like he just got completely screwed over. Like, Heim obviously got screwed, but at least he didn't get, like, fired. Nick Sanchez got fired for doing well, for doing the best anybody's ever done in that car, for someone that's honestly nothing against Starpoli, but Starpoli ain't going to do jack shit in that number 48 car this year. He's just not. Like, he's just not. He's not going to be competitive. And to have that fall through for Sanchez, that's just unfortunate. That sucks. And Heim doesn't have a full-time ride. So pretty much, in my opinion, if he doesn't win a race for 2311 this year, I don't think he has much of a future, unfortunately. And that's nothing against Corey Heim. I think Corey Heim is probably the best young driver in the sport right now, other than Zilich, but Zilich is already at the cup level at this point. But he doesn't have the sponsorship. He's kind of locked in at Toyota, it seems like. So Heim needs to kick all sorts of ass this year. Speaking of Cory, how do you feel about these two late moves in silly season, with Corey Heim getting a part-time effort and then Nick Sanchez actually getting a full-time ride in the O'Reilly Series?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Legacy supposed to have a third charter as of this year, but the dispute
It was
made
rumored,
it get pushed to next year?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
I think that's what the whole lawsuit was for, was
Yep,
because they were
you're
supposed to have a car this year, and now it's next year. I still think that's Heim's ride,
Most
and I
likely.
think that's why he's riding it. I think that's why he's riding it out with Toyota as much as he is and as loyal as he is. I think as long as he doesn't wreck the cars and he shows consistency, and I think if he gets a top 10, maybe two top 10s, that cements his like role in the Cup Series. I think that cements him getting that third car, because I know obviously winning in the Cup Series is hard, but getting a top 10 on a part-time schedule is even like harder, right? So I don't know. I think his future's kind of there. Like, you can kind of see
murky.
where it's gonna go. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. He's on a ledge, but I think there's a bright path ahead. He just needs to stay consistent. And then with Nick Sanchez, I think it'll be interesting to see how he does. I mean, I think we all know he did good last year, but with this change, how consistent is he going to be? What does he need to get another opportunity next year? I think that's the biggest question. Does he have to finish top 20, top 15 in the standings this year with
I
the
think he has to
equipment
make
he's in to
playoffs.
maybe get? Yeah, I think that's probably a good bet to say, but yeah, I don't know. That was a surprise to everybody, and I think he deserves a ride, but he has to show consistency in a vehicle or in a car that usually never is consistent.
The one argument I have for you when it comes to the legacy ride, because I do agree with you. We heard all the talking points and everything that was discussed with the lawsuit when it came to legacy, RFK, and Rick Ware Racing. I think we talked about it a little bit on the show last year, but my contention, my argument with what you're saying is, if Brent Cruz, who's the hottest name out of young drivers right now, and he's part of Joe Gibbs Racing this year in the O'Reilly Series, if Brent Cruz goes out there and wins 4 or 5 races and competes for a championship, I don't think Corey Heim gets that ride. Even though Heim's the more deserving person, Brent Cruz has a lot more people behind him, whether it's sponsorship or big supporters. He's like Kevin Harvick's a big supporter of him, and then there's a lot of other people that are big supporters of Brent Cruz and his abilities. And also, he's the hot name. He's the hot name, and he's connected to Joe Gibbs Racing. Joe Gibbs Racing might be like, hey, put this guy in your car, just how they did with Eric Jones, just how they did with John Hunter Nemechek, just how they may do with Brent Cruz. So that would be the one argument I would have for that.
I say even with that, there's another opportunity that will be available if Riley Herbst doesn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, there you go.
I think if Riley Herbst doesn't make the playoffs, he's gonna get that full-time ride. I think Denny's probably written that in stone for Riley this year. I love the sponsorship money, but I want to see that car in victory lane. I want to see that car fighting for wins. I want to see that car in the playoffs. So I think he has 2 opportunities. That's why I think he's so loyal to Toyota, and I think Denny is taking him under his wing.
Oh, for sure.
That he's trying to get him somewhere, you know?
Yeah, I think Denny sees the pure talent in him. Michael Jordan pays a lot more attention to NASCAR than I think most people would think, and I think he probably sees something in Corey Heim and Heim time. And I would 100% agree with you. If Herbst isn't competitive this year and is at least close to that playoff line where he's battling for the playoffs at the end of the regular season, if he's not in the top 20 once the playoffs start, I would 100% agree with you that Heim should and probably will get that ride in driving the number 35. But if Herbst ends up making the playoffs, which I highly doubt, I don't think Herbst is going to make the playoffs. But if Herbst does make the playoffs and Brent Cruz wins a couple of races, I don't see any way that Heim is in a full-time Cup car next year, which is bullshit. I think that's the best thing I could say about it. It's bullshit. Corey Heim is extremely talented, but I said it about the Ram race, a race for the seat right before we started. Some of these guys that are coming up aren't necessarily have a big presence on social media, or they don't have a bunch of sponsorship, or they don't have a bunch of money supporting them. And Corey Heim is pretty much living purely on how skillful he is right now. Like, as if you take away his skill, if you take away even a little bit of his skill, I don't think he's racing in any of the series right now, unfortunately, with the way NASCAR is. Hopefully, with everything that happened with the 2311 Front Row Motorsports lawsuit within the next couple of years, we can see some big changes in that when it comes to revenue and stuff like that. Tyler, do you have any?
And to be completely honest,
Yeah,
to be completely honest, if he doesn't get an opportunity, or at least like literally just an opportunity with Toyota next year, he needs to leave Toyota. I think we all say that.
Yeah,
we all agree
100%.
to that. He shouldn't be part-time this year.
Toyota's been leading him on.
If he sticks with Toyota next year without getting a full-time opportunity, Corey's just gonna shoot his own career. You know, he's gonna ruin his own career. So that's my opinion. I think he has avenues. He's just trying to be loyal.
Yeah, I think he is just trying to be loyal. Tyler, do you have any last thoughts on the Heim Sanchez situation? We kind of went really in depth with that Heim stuff there.
No, you guys nailed pretty much all of it. Like he just said. I mean, the biggest thing is he wants to stay in racing. Unfortunately, you can't just go out there and prove how good you are and that be the end of it. There has to be money and talks and crap behind it, unfortunately. And man knows he has to stay loyal if he wants to stay in NASCAR.
Yeah, so we'll see how it turns out for Corey Heim. Heim time. I think he is going to be competitive. I think he can very much get a win. I'm feeling Chicagoland when he's racing in that 67. I feel like that will be his place. That's my early prediction. I think he's going to get in the top 5, maybe even get the win at Chicagoland later in the year. But Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about the future for Corey Heim and Nick Sanchez? And what do you also feel? How do you also feel about them getting last second rides, essentially? Corey Heim has been signed to 2311 for a while, but just now announced a 12 race schedule. And Nick Sanchez seems like he got signed like 2 days ago on a piece of paper. Like that's what it sounds. That's pretty much what it sounds like. That Sanchez just got signed like a week before Daytona. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. All right.
Hail Mary denied.
Let's move. Let's move on to our second topic for today, and that, of course, is, and I referenced it a second ago, the Ram race for the seat on Fox and on YouTube was won by Manassas, Virginia. That's like a couple minutes from where I grew up in Northern Virginia. Minnie Tyrell will be moving up to the Craftsman Truck Series. Of course, he's been racing in the Cars Tour, AWA, and a couple other series. He's had some success, and he will be moving up to the Craftsman Truck Series, has a full-time ride after winning the competition show, driving the number 14 full-time for Colleague and Ram in the Craftsman Truck Series. Signed to a 1-year deal, so he's going to need to go out there and impress in his first year. So I'm personally very happy for Minnie Tyrell. I've seen him in the ranks the last couple of years. A very talented race car driver. He's also a Virginia boy. I'm from Virginia. He's from Virginia, so I'm always gonna support a Virginia boy, especially a Nova boy. He's from Northern Virginia, so that makes me even more hyped up about it. I'm very excited to see him moving up in the NASCAR ranks. But I think they made a lot of mistakes with this show. I still haven't seen the last 2 episodes, mainly because I've just been going through it the last couple of days. Plus, they kind of spoiled the ending of it, but that apparently wasn't a big secret in the garage and throughout a lot of the NASCAR community. I was going out of my way personally to not figure out who won it. I feel like I could have figured it out at any time, and I went out of my way to avoid it because I wanted to be surprised. And Minnie Tyrell ended up winning the whole thing. The release schedule was god awful in my opinion. I felt like it was on the back burner for Fox. I almost felt like NASCAR on Fox and Fox in general were trying to bury the series because they were just showing the episodes at completely different times throughout the week, really weird release times. And if you were watching purely on Fox and not on YouTube, well, I think you're like 6 episodes in or something if you've watched on Fox. Like the finale hasn't even aired on Fox yet. I don't think the finale airs on Fox until Thursday this week, I think. So the release schedule was just completely awful. I did like a lot of the things about the show. Chris Rice, I have seen the complaints about Chris Rice. A lot of the Chris Rice stuff I was fine with, but some of it I'm like, Chris Rice, you're not the host of the show. You're part of the show for sure, but you're not the host. And I felt like he did more hosting than the actual guy that was supposed to be hosting, the guy from, what's the show called? Can't remember the show right now. But yeah, I felt like Chris Rice was more of the host than he was. So I think it sounds like they are doing a season 2. It sounds like they are doing a season 2, and I'm happy they're doing a season 2. And I think there is a whole bunch of improvements they can make. Probably the biggest thing would be the release schedule, though, because the way they had it set up with the release schedule, even if it wasn't, what's it called, a non-secret throughout the NASCAR garage and the NASCAR industry, even if it wasn't that, if you took a look at the ARCA entry list, and you have to enter an ARCA race before you can enter one of those 3 races. If you took a look at the ARCA entry list when it got released a couple of days ago or whatever for the Daytona ARCA 200, you would already know that it was either Minnie Tyrell or I forget who the other person was, because there's only 2 people from that show that were on the entry list for the ARCA race. So you would have figured it out. Oh, it's one of these 2 guys right now, and one of these guys is competing for it, and one of these guys isn't. So I got that guy's the winner. So I just think they did a really bad job when it came to the releases, when it came to the secret. Everything else I was perfectly fine with. I was fine with them charging, like giving people points for commercials and media day sort of stuff, because that's part of the job. That's part of the job. That's how they get sponsorships. So I was perfectly fine with all of that. I think the only thing I may have had an issue with when it came to the actual competitions themselves was Chris Rice, and then we're trying to throw cautions at like the road course of Virginia International, and I was like, please don't do that. They ended up not throwing it out. They threw it out a couple times on the short track, but they threw it out for every race, so I didn't have too much of a problem with that. But I'll send it to Tyler first because I know Tyler has watched a good amount of the show. I don't think he has finished it yet either. But Tyler, how did you feel about how they did Ram race for the seat, and would you look forward to a season 2?
I'd absolutely enjoy a season 2 of it. I think it was a great idea of a show. I just think it came too late in the season, so it was obviously rushed. You had a lot of things that they just didn't work out very well. You could tell who they had involved. All of it just wasn't as put together as it could have been. If they're smart, if they can get season 2 onto Amazon Prime, I think that's the
That'd
way
be
to go.
better, yeah.
I know Fox is trying to bring things in. Good on them for doing things outside of the box, but better off Prime. Prime does better production with that kind of thing, and I think they'd have a little bit more control and better with the releasing
Yeah, I
for
couldn't.
sure. The show itself, though, was pretty well done. I mean, for what it was, I enjoyed it. It was cool to see those kids out there having something to fight for. Like you said, they had to go through each thing that NASCAR's involved with: media, short track, every type of different track. I mean, the only thing that bothered me, I think, mostly is they didn't tune those cars to all be what they could have been, like tuned the same and stuff. I get, like, obviously in NASCAR, not everything's ever going to be the same, but still, they could have done the cars a little bit closer, things like that.
Yeah, there was a couple of people also in that show that I had personally never heard of, and I'm pretty in depth when it comes to a lot of this stuff that I personally have never heard of that really impressed me. I forget what his last name is. I feel bad. That Ryan kid that was a pure road course racer, and he was kicking ass on ovals. He was doing great. I was really impressed by him. I think he has a bright future in NASCAR if he wants it because he seems like a natural talent. Carson Ferguson, I think's the kid's name. I think he finished second in the show. I had never heard of him before. Apparently, he also has a brother. I've never heard of either of them before. And Carson Ferguson was phenomenal. The Kelly brothers, the Kelly twins, they looked pretty good. Casey, especially. They impressed me quite a bit. I've heard of Landon Huffman before, but to see him out there performing, especially later on in the show, was impressed by that. Michael Christopher Jr. I've heard of. He did really well. There was a couple people that I think just did really well in this show, and some of them I have never heard of before this show that really impressed me, and they've kind of gotten, some of them have gotten their names out there. I feel like pretty much everybody that was on the show are better off afterwards than before the show when it comes to sponsorship and social media engagement and all that stuff. But all these people that were on, all the kids that were on this show kind of need, well, not all of them were kids, actually. A couple of them were, like, I think Jonathan Cash, he was pretty old. I want to say he was like 38 or 40 or something. So there was a couple of guys that were a little bit older on the show. But I think everybody that was on that show, if they weren't social media savvy before the show, they need to become social media savvy because now we know their personalities, we know how they're like, and I was very impressed. And even though it had a little bit of a drama effect to it, like they would go back to the house and they'd play the drama stuff, and like it was what, like Hell's Kitchen or something like that, which I was perfectly fine with because we're going to see how these people actually are and how they interact with other drivers and with other people and just how they would be day to day sort of thing. So I was cool with that as well. But there's a lot of things they need to improve on, and I'm very worried that they're gonna pull the same thing that NASCAR Full Speed did, because the first season of NASCAR Full Speed I thought was pretty good, but there was a lot of improvements they needed to make. Well, with the second season of NASCAR Full Speed, they just got worse. And then I don't think they're doing a third season of NASCAR Full Speed. I haven't heard about it, so I would assume they're not doing it. So I think there's a lot of things they need to improve. And I agree with you, Tyler. I think it would be a lot better on. I think it'd be a lot better on Prime or on Netflix potentially. But we do have to keep in mind that every single Truck Series race is on Fox or Fox Sports 1. So that would be a pipe dream, unfortunately. I don't think it's leaving Fox. Unless they decided to do it for the O'Reilly series, then it'd be a CW show. Or if they wanted to do it for the Cup series, which wouldn't happen. They wouldn't give a full-time ride to an unknown person in the Cup series. But if they did, maybe that could get on Prime. I agree with you. I'd prefer it on Prime. I think they do everything better. But it will unfortunately be on Fox. So, but I know they've read a lot of the comments, and NASCAR have been really trying to listen to the fans lately. So potentially they read those comments. And Colleague's a very popular race team too. So hopefully Colleague and NASCAR are able to convince Fox to do this bigger and better next year, because I think it has so much potential to be a phenomenal show. Cory, how do you feel about a competition show like this? I think it's a really cool thing to have a competition show like this, because then some of these drivers that wouldn't have a chance of moving up to higher up in the ranks can actually show their true skill, pure skill, and just they don't got to worry about the sponsorships with this show in particular, because they're set up for the whole year. That's something they would have to worry about afterwards. But it gets a lot of these kids and older drivers, even names out there. How do you feel about a competition show like this?
I think it's awesome. Little one, because of that. One, you kind of get an in-depth look at NASCAR behind the scenes, and then two, a big one is that these guys get a name for themselves that they normally probably wouldn't. Unless you have
Yep.
Flow Racing, you probably don't know any of those names or heard of any of those names unless you're on the East Coast and you're an avid race, racing fan, and you just have a knack to go to racing. Like, it's hard to find out new names if you're just a NASCAR fan. Versus this gives some exposure. This gives an avenue to watch like up and comers and have another interest or drivers to root for at a young age. So you have someone to root for when they get into NASCAR. And I know it creates a legacy. I feel like it creates another way to get younger fans, another way to just have people who don't watch racing find it, and a handful of people start watch racing because of that show. But honestly, I think that's the biggest thing. I think it's a cool way to introduce the common NASCAR fan into some young and up and coming guys that aren't in the NASCAR series yet, for fans to actually know a little bit about them, root for them, and create a, I guess, a more long lasting audience in a way
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
gets them more intrigued in, the Friday
They
series,
become
the
fans of
Saturday
these
series. I
guys.
feel like correct. And then you start watching the other series, because we all know there's people that just watch Sunday, so like I think there's a lot of things that a show like this, if done correctly, can promote NASCAR in a positive way and create more fans.
Like one of the guys in the show that I feel like showed his personality probably the very most, and honestly didn't do that great I didn't see where he landed in the final standings, but after episode 6, I mean, uh, I looked at where he was in the standings. He was pretty low, and this guy showed personality more than anybody, whether it was good or bad, and that was Tanner Reef. I think it's Tanner Reef, or is it Taylor Reef? He has his brother that's in the truck series part time too, so I get the names confused. But the Reef kid, he was the one that argued with Chris Rice in that somewhat viral clip, I guess, probably the most viral clip from the show. But he showed his personality, the good parts and the bad parts, to full extent, which I greatly appreciated. I think some people in the house were rubbed wrong by the Reef Kid, but I became a fan of him personally, because he said straight up, and he was the only one that had the balls to say to Chris Rice, "Hey, these cars are slower than the other cars." No one else was going to say shit. But Reef was like, "Hey, these cars are slower than the other cars," and Chris Rice was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" Chris Rice is mad as hell. I think you saw that, Tyler. But that's what I liked about the show. These guys get to actually show their personalities to the full extent, and I know more about these kids' personalities than I know about most NASCAR drivers' personalities, because they were able to show it to the full extent. So I think
100%.
season 2 would be very warranted. I think it has potential to be a really great show, to be honest. I think this could be a show that's done every single year, every couple of years, to be honest with you, if it is done in the correct way, in the correct fashion. Because Roush did this back in the day. That's how we found Kurt Busch and Carl Edwards. And I think they only ran 1 or 2 seasons of the Driver X show, but they had a Driver X program before they actually had the actual show, where a lot of drivers ended up being discovered from. So I like this idea. I hope they continue to go forward with it and they're able to improve on it, because it does sound like they are doing a season 2. Chris Rice has kind of made it obvious they're doing a season 2. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully they're able to make those improvements. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. What did you think about the Ram race for the seat? How do you feel about Mini Tyrell running a full season? I think Mini Tyrell is going to go out there and at least win one race. I think the kid is very talented and has a huge passion for the sport. He was doing better than pretty much everybody in like the press conferences and the commercial challenge and all that stuff. He just overall did great the whole competition. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. All right. Before we move on, we did have a segment debut last week that I said last week we're going to try to do it every week. It really just depends on how many small stories we get throughout the week. So here is In Other News. So this week in other news, we have a couple of stories here that we couldn't quite fit into the show, or we didn't have enough information to really have it be a big story. And this first one, I'd say, is probably the coolest, most interesting story of the bunch. In a report with Adam Stern, Ben Kennedy is looking at 7 different cities potentially to host the 2027 NASCAR finale, the NASCAR Championship Weekend. These cities could include Phoenix, Las Vegas, Dallas-Fort Worth for Texas Motor Speedway, Charlotte, Atlanta, Miami, Nashville. There could be some other cities that are involved in this that I am not mentioning. And then also accompanying that report was that Talladega is looking to get some renovations, long overdue renovations, in my opinion. One of the most popular tracks on the circuit, and hasn't had major renovations in quite a long time. So that will be very cool for the fans at Talladega Super Speedway. And this one here is pretty cool. NASCAR has kicked off the season by setting a Guinness World Record. They have the Guinness World Record with the world's loudest billboard, as they unveiled this big billboard in New York City in Times Square saying hell yeah, with the big engine in the middle. They had Ross Chastain messing with the engine earlier, and then the Guinness employee, I guess you would say, came up and congratulated Ross Chastain, congratulated NASCAR for having the world record for the world's loudest billboard. Over Super Bowl weekend, of course, a lot of people paid attention to the commercials. We did have couple of NASCAR stars star into some commercials. We had Jesse Love and we had Bubba Wallace in Super Bowl commercials this weekend. So that will do it for this week's segment of In Other News. Leave your comments about all the stories that were discussed in other news, like Ben Kennedy is looking at multiple different cities to potentially do the 2027 season finale, plus Talladega is getting some full renovations, well overdue. Also, let me know how you feel about the Super Bowl commercials if you saw them. And then also, hell yeah, the billboard, the world's loudest billboard, new Guinness World Record. Ross Chastain was down in Times Square for that earlier today. It was pretty cool. All right, let's
The watermelon smash.
The watermelon mash. That would be he should have smashed a watermelon in the middle of Times Square. That would have been cool. I think that would have been pretty cool.
He did.
Oh, did he? I didn't see that video.
He did. Yeah, no, he did. He smashed a watermelon.
That's awesome. There's probably somebody passing by in Times Square. I was like, this motherfucker, where do you get those drugs at?
We're like, what is going on?
What is going on here? Why is this guy in a suit smashing watermelons? What's going on? What the hell is going on? All right.
Engine on a billboard.
Let's move on to our Daytona 500 preview for the Pacecar boys, as it is the great American race this weekend, the great American weekend on the 250th anniversary of America as well, the 68th running of the Daytona 500. Let's quickly go through the schedule and facts for the weekend. Here is the weekend schedule for the Daytona 500. On Wednesday, we have Cup practice and Cup qualifying both on Fox Sports 1 in the morning at 10 a.m., and then Cup qualifying at 8 p.m. I think that's kind of weird that they did that, but Yeah, there it is. On Thursday, you have Truck Series practice on Fox Sports 1, followed by the Daytona 500 duels, which will decide who makes it into the Great American Race and the overall starting lineup, as qualifying only decides the front row in the Great American Race. We'll talk more about the drivers getting eliminated here in a minute. On Friday, we have Truck Series qualifying, followed by O'Reilly Auto Parts Series practice, which sees CW get its first NASCAR action of the year. At 5:30, we have the second Daytona 500 practice. At this point, everybody that's in this practice is going to be in the race. There is no more eliminations after the duel, obviously. And then at 7:30, we have the Truck Series opener, the Fresh from Florida 250, and that is a stacked race. I'll talk about that here in a second. And then on Saturday, we have the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series qualifying on CW at 10 in the morning. And then we have the Daytona ARCA 200 on Fox. There's some interesting people in that race as well. At 3 p.m., we have the final Daytona 500 practice on Fox Sports 1 at 3 p.m. And then we have the O'Reilly Series opener. The first race in the O'Reilly Series era is the United Rentals 300 on the CW. And then on Sunday, as it's scheduled at the moment, I'll get to that in a second. On Sunday at 2:30 p.m., we have the 68th running of the Daytona 500. Now let's get to the weekly facts, the weekly track facts. It is the 68th running of the Daytona 500. The stages end at lap 65, 135, no, not 135, just 130, and it's a 200 lap race. Of course, Daytona is located in Daytona Beach, Florida, a 2.5 mile super speedway, opened up back in 1959. The first race was won by Lee Petty, the first inaugural Daytona 500, and then the active win leader is Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin, 3-time Daytona 500 champion, and then of course last year's winner was William Byron, who's looking to go 3 in a row. He's won the last 2 Daytona 500s. And now we'll take a look at the notable entries. Like I said, the Truck Series field is completely stacked. You have Cletus McFarland driving the number 4, who does have to qualify his way in. He has been approved to race in the Truck Series a little bit earlier today. The number 7, Michael McDowell. The number 25 is Smoke. Tony Stewart making his return to NASCAR, and it will actually be his first ever truck race at Daytona. He has raced a truck before, but he's never raced a truck at Daytona, so I'm very interested to see how that goes. Travis Pastrana, he's back in the Truck Series driving the number 42. He is locked into the field. Then you have the number 45 of Ricky Stenhouse Jr., the All-American team over there at Nice. You have McFarland, you have Pastrana, and you have Stenhouse racing for Nice. Then you have the number 62 of John Hunter Nemechek racing with Friesen. Stuart Friesen will be his teammate in the event. The number 75 of Cory LaJoie. We've seen Henderson Motorsports have success at the super speedways with Parker Kligerman. And then driving the number 77 is Carson Hocevar. But then we move on to the notable entries for O'Reilly. And there's really only one notable entry, and that is once again Carson Hocevar, who will be attempting triple duty this weekend, racing the trucks for Spire, racing in O'Reilly for Young Motorsports in the number 42, and then, of course, racing in the Cup Series. And now we'll take a look at a couple of the notable entries for the Cup Series. We have Chandler Smith in the 36. We have Justin Allgaier in the number 40. We have J.J. Yaley in the 44. We have the 67 of Corey Heim. We have the 99 of Cory LaJoie. The 99 is back at Roush at RFK Racing. And then you also have, that's not listed on here, you also have Casey Mears in the race. Jimmy Johnson's already locked into the event as well in the 84 for his own race team. And then at the bottom, you see the weekend weather report. And I've seen a couple of different reports, but from what I've seen so far, Friday and Saturday, and also Wednesday, Thursday earlier on in the week, seems like it's going to be clear. Seems like we're not going to have any issues with rain. But Sunday, at the moment, it's looking like we're most likely going to get some sort of rain, whether that's during the race or after or before the race. It looks like we're probably going to have rain affect the 68th running of the Daytona 500, which is completely awful and also not a surprise at all. And then if you look at Monday, I would have to update that because I have looked at a couple more weather reports over the last hour, and it looks like Monday there is a decent chance of rain as well in the morning of all time. So we might have a Monday night Daytona 500. We'll have to see what happens with that. That is frustrating and not surprising, and also very, very disappointing, I would say. But so that will do it for the weekend facts and the weekend schedule. I said I was gonna talk about the drivers that could potentially get eliminated in this event. So I thought we'd do something this week with Grok where we ask Grok, what does Grok think about this? What does Grok think about who may or may not get eliminated from the Daytona 500? So let's ask Grok what Grok thinks who will be eliminated from the Daytona 500. Let me pull this up here. Okay, we have Grok searching right now. Out of the drivers who need to qualify into the 2026 Daytona 500, who makes the race and who misses it? I think for me, it's pretty easy who the 4 drivers that make it and who are the 4 that miss it personally. I have a good idea on who I think makes it and who I think misses it. But let's see what Grok has to say about the situation here as it's beginning to pull up. It's still searching a little bit here. Of course, you have Justin Allgaier involved in this. You have both the Corys, Cory Heim, Cory LaJoie involved in this. Fast Pasta, Anthony Alfredo. You have BJ McLeod involved in this. There's some pretty decent drivers that may or may not end up making the race. All right, so let's take a look at who could potentially make this race. Right now, it's just showing me the entry list, and here we go. These are the drivers that need to qualify. Okay, this is why I did this earlier with you, Grok, and you answered me perfectly fine. So we're just gonna do this ourselves then, because Grok told me earlier, it gave me four answers. Right now, it's not giving me the answers. This is why AI isn't always great. All right, so who do we think are going to be the 4 people that end up making the Daytona 500? I personally think it's going to be these 4. I think the 2 that are going to qualify in through time are going to be Cory LaJoie and Chandler Smith, because they're in Fords, and these Fords are just so good in qualifying, and LaJoie especially, a very talented super speedway racer, so I think both of those drivers will advance their qualifying. And then through their separate duels, I predict Justin Allgaier and Cory Heim to be the other 2 people that advance to the Daytona 500, which would eliminate the other 4 drivers being J.J. Yaley, Casey Mears would get eliminated, BJ McLeod, and then Anthony Alfredo. I had to look down and make sure I remembered all the names there. But those 4 drivers are the 4 I would have eliminated. The first one on the outside, I would say, is Anthony Alfredo, personally. But let's get our thoughts from the Pacecar boys here, and we'll start with Cory. Cory, who do you think gets eliminated, and who do you think makes the Daytona 500 out of those 8 drivers?
I think Heim and LaJoie qualify in, and I think Allgaier and a surprise like Casey Mears make it in.
Wow, Casey Mears. So you think those 2? You think Chandler and LaJoie are going to be the ones that qualify through time?
No, I said Cory Heim and Cory LaJoie. The
Okay.
Corys qualify. Oh wait, no. Yeah, the Corys qualify on time.
Okay. All right. Tyler, who do you think are the 4 that advance, and who do you think are the 4 that get eliminated?
It's a hard one, man. I'd have to say the Corys advance. I'd have to agree with Cory there. The Corys advance for sure. And yeah, I'd have to stick with that. That's a hard one.
Allgaier's not going to make it?
I don't think so.
Whoa.
I think this is the year he's out. I hate saying that because Junior's putting a lot of money in there, but something's just not feeling right this year.
You might need to cancel your pre-order.
And you can't say that and then buy the diecast.
That's what I'm saying.
Hey, I bought the diecast, but hey, you never know. Something's just not feeling just buttoned up this year, no. Hey, I ain't risking it. Those fuckers try to sell them for $400 on eBay. That's insane.
If he doesn't make the race, will you cancel the pre-order?
No.
Okay.
It'll still sell for $400 on eBay.
so might even sell for more. It's even more rare. All right, but let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Race version, right in the deep.
Who do you think makes the Great American Race, and who do you think misses the Great American Race? Let me know in the comments. Also, if you are watching on X, it seems like my connection is, I'm dropping some frames over here. My internet was bugging out a little bit before the stream, so if you're having issues, I do apologize. If you are watching live on X, this will be put on YouTube and Spotify afterwards without any of the lagging, obviously, other than maybe Cory or Tyler dropping for a second, which does happen from time to time. All right, so now we will move on to our weekly picks. Just to once again update our weekly picks. This is how it looks after Bowman Gray Stadium. You have Tyler leading the points with 5 points and a weekly win. I am second in points with 3, and then Cory only has the single point after Bowman Gray Stadium. So that would actually have Cory go first this week in weekly picks. Cory, who is your pick to win the Great American Race?
The 2-time NASCAR Cup Series champion. He's never won
Kyle Busch!
The Daytona 500 before. I'm picking Kyle Busch.
Wow, this guy's a complete dickhead. Okay. He knew I was going to take him. Damn it. Damn it. All right. Now I got to shift. All right, I have to shift to another guy. I didn't have any backup plan. So, who is my pick to win the Great American Race?
I knew it too.
Yeah, he knew I didn't have any backup plan. He's like, aha, this is how I win again. I was set up for failure. All right. So here is my pick to win the Great American Race. I will actually take, this is going to be a bold take. But he did pretty well at Bowman Gray. He's a pretty good super speedway racer. And how crazy would it be if this guy won the Daytona 500 on the 250th anniversary of America? I'm picking the Mexican, Daniel Suarez, to win the Daytona 500. He is my pick to win the Daytona 500. And that'll probably be wrong, but that's my pick. Tyler, who is your pick to win the Great American Race?
Well, you just opened the door for like a crazy pick if I wanted to. I mean, I've been thinking about it. You never know where to go. Carson was my lean. Ah, man, I was thinking for a minute, but nah, that streak's got to break. That's Daytona. Daytona ain't going to allow that. Ain't no way in hell.
I was thinking Bowman for a second.
But nah, it was going to be Carson, but let's go crazy. Let's go Chris Buescher.
I feel like that's less crazy.
On the Daytona 500.
I feel like that's less crazy.
Well, I was going to say Brad Keselowski, but his leg's broken, so let's not go there.
All right.
and he has bad luck getting out of cars. Don't make him climb.
Oh yeah, don't make him get out of a car. No Zilich either.
Yep.
All right.
And no Connor.
So those are our picks for the Great American Race. Cory has picked Kyle Busch, Rowdy, to finally get his first Daytona 500 victory. I have picked the Mexican to win on the 250th anniversary of the United States, so I just got unsubscribed by everybody. Daniel Suarez is my pick to win the Daytona 500. Go get him, Daniel. Everybody knows I'm a huge Suarez guy. And then, of course, Tyler ends up picking Christopher Buescher, the driver of the number 17 for RFK Racing, to get his win on the year. One more time, Tyler picks the number 17, I pick the number 7, and then Cory picks the number 8. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Who is your pick to win the Daytona 500? Maybe even give me your picks to win the O'Reilly Trucks and the ARCA race at Daytona this weekend. All right, so before we head on our way, I'm going to send it to the boys for last words. Tyler, any words you have for the people heading into the Daytona 500? Anything any Daytona 500 memories maybe that come to your mind?
Man, God, Daytona is one of the greatest places on earth when it comes to NASCAR. All all of our memories really start there and end there when it comes to the biggest moments. So just strap in, be ready, and know that every race that we race there means something. This is one of the biggest ones, and it's the start of the year.
Very good words from Tyler. Cory, any last words you have for the people? Any Daytona 500 moments or anything like that that stand out in your mind?
I'm just ready for some racing and no more fucking fuel saving.
No more fuel saving? I hope not. I hope there is none of that fuel saving. Personally, for me, what always stands out to me is obviously Dale Earnhardt's 1998 victory in the Great American Race. The junior wins always stand out to me for some reason, even though I wasn't a junior fan growing up. They always stand out to me. And then Kyle Busch just losing and losing and losing and losing and losing. And then Tony Stewart just losing and losing and losing and losing. That's what stands out to me in the Daytona 500. It's a bunch of losses by some of my favorite drivers, some of the greatest of all time. I hope Cory wins this week because I want this, not this car in particular, but I want Kyle Busch in victory lane this weekend. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about the Daytona 500? Is there any memories that stand out in your mind? Let me know in the comments. All right, so that will do it for this week's edition of Hit the Pace Car. We will be live again next week, post Daytona, pre Echo Park, aka Atlanta Motor Speedway. Next week, we will be live once again on X, aka Twitter. Next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. But here in a couple of weeks, that will be moved over to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And once again, if you are watching this on X, this video possibly could be no good. It might get re-uploaded here in a little bit if it's really bad with a lot of dropped frames. But in that case, you can also tune in on YouTube and Spotify. The video and the audio will be up here within a couple hours. So check those out as well. Follow, subscribe to any of our social medias, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, X. We're not on Threads or Facebook. They can go fuck themselves. So that'll do it. That'll do it for this week's edition of Hit the Pace Car. Hope to see you next week and enjoy the great American race on America's 250th birthday. And peace.